Hello, and welcome to the Learn to Code podcast with 1 Month. My name is Chris, and today I'll be speaking with Irma Mesa. Irma is a product manager at Open Up Resources. That is a nonprofit that makes K-12 curriculum available. They're doing some wonderful work and have support. Most of their support and funding comes from some pretty big names like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as the Schusterman family. In this episode, we're going to look at the question, should a product manager learn how to code? And is it important? In her job, she works with this company. They are a print curriculum company, and she's using modern day techniques like A/B testing and user research, various UX techniques, as well as coding techniques to run the engineering team. And it's really interesting to see how a lot of that really helps give them an edge and refine their product market fit for what they're doing. It's a really interesting story. So in this episode, Irma joins me. She is working remotely. They're a completely remote company, and she's joining me from Indiana. And we're going to talk about, well, how she went from being a psych major to learning how to code. What was that like? Should a product manager know how to code? And then we'll talk about the various resources that she learned on her journey. Codecademy, freeCodeCamp, as well as 1 Month. How are each of them different? What was helpful? What did she use first? What language would she recommend if you're new to just starting code? What should you start with? All that kind of stuff, and what she's excited about. So that and much more. Without any further ado, here is my conversation with Irma. Welcome to the show, Irma. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's sunny out. I'm on the call with you. It's going great.
I love to hear that. That's great. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami, Florida. Then I went to school at Florida International University where I majored in psychology. Thought I wanted to do like surgery stuff and be a surgeon, but then I switched gears. I found out that wasn't really for me, which is always great. And then just ended up going into that psychology track. So took a bunch of psychology classes, sociology. I was just really interested to understand how humans behave. I think it's a really interesting, since I'm a very like introverted person. I've always been intrigued by just observing people. And I think psych was just like that other major that I could take where I was just like, yep, this aligns with what I like to do and what I think will maybe help me in the future. So that's the main reason why I ended up going towards that psych major.
When people asked you, hey, Irma, what do you want to be when you grow up? At that time, were you thinking that you would be a psychologist of some sort? Or did you have an idea in your head, like what you would do with the degree? Was that important?
It sort of was, but I think I was majoring in psychology because I didn't know, like, I had always had this really big passion for tech and fixing computers and fixing smartphones and all that. I just didn't know what to do with that. So what I ended up doing was taking the psych major, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll do this. And then I'll become like a behavior therapist, right? Like somebody who just like works with kids that have like autism or ADHD. So that was my plan, right? But on the side, I was still tinkering with tech. I had my own little YouTube channel where I was just like reviewing phone cases and like computers and other stuff. So I had like an outlet, right? I was like, okay, I'm still like doing what I still like on the side, but I'm doing this like serious thing that's going to kind of carry me through life, and majoring in something that I can potentially get a job in when I'm out of school.
That's cool. I'm always interested in like the influences that lead people to their decisions. So you're telling me that you were fixing computers and that you were reviewing things on YouTube. I mean, where do you get that idea from? Where did that come from?
That's a good question. The fixing part, it usually ended up happening with my family and friends, right? So for some reason, I don't know why, I just came like the de facto, like, you know how to use an iPhone, so you must obviously know how to do everything else. Fix computers, remove viruses, right? Like all these different things. I'm just like, sure. And it was fun. Like I just like enjoy helping people. So it just like ended up that I was like this person that everybody would go to for tech issues. And then the YouTube side of it, I'm not really sure like where that came about. I think I probably watched like MKBHD or something, and I was like, that's cool. He has a YouTube channel where he just like talks about phone cases and talks about different like desktop apps that work or don't work and why they don't work and his opinion on that. And I just thought that was really interesting. So I ended up just like just creating a YouTube channel one day and just went with it. And it was hard. It was like hard balancing trying to do that and like follow my passion in tech over here and then figure out my psych major courses over there. So it was an interesting time. I was just doing a lot. I feel like I'm always doing a lot though.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about that. You have a lot of projects going on. It's really exciting. I want to know a little more about how you then decided, hey, maybe I should learn to code. Was it something? Just tell me how did that happen? Like, where did that idea come from?
Yeah, so I think I was in my last year of college, so 2015, I believe. And it was like December. It was like December 2014 leading into 2015. And somehow I came across, I want to say it was like an article. I read something where somebody was like, check out Codecademy. And I don't know why. I just like ended up clicking on it. I was like, I'm not sure what this is, but I just clicked on it. I signed up for an account. And I just started playing around with the HTML lessons that they had. And it was just really like, it was just so different that I think my mind was just like grabbed onto it. And it was like, yes, this is unique. This is creative, right? And every time you would write a line of HTML, like you would see like your H1 appear as a title on the right-hand side, right? And I think that instant like gratification of, hey, I just wrote this thing in like a non-human language, right? Syntax. And it just ended up showing up on my browser. Like, I think that just like really inspired me to just keep digging into what coding was. So I ended up doing, I think, HTML and CSS on Codecademy. And I think it's like it's like living and breathing sort of like learning. So I didn't just say I was just going to learn these two things. Like I wanted to explore different resources. So I think I ended up like looking up different resources. I think I came across like CSS tricks and other resources where I was just like, okay, let's actually build something at this point. Like I think I have a good handle on HTML. I have a decent handle on CSS. I'm not going to learn the whole thing right now, but let's just like get my hands dirty. I ended up building like my own about me page and it was pretty bad, not going to lie. Like looking back at it, it was like barely any styling, just like H1 tags here and tables there and just a bunch of text. But it was like really gratifying just to like know that I had built something from the ground up. Whereas before I felt like I wasn't really getting that from anything. I was going to school, I was seeing like my grades, they were pretty good, but I don't think I was getting any joy. So I think coding brought me joy. So I just ended up pursuing that on the side. Like after work, I would just like spend a few hours like into the night, literally just learning and coding and building. And it was really, really cool.
That's amazing. So this about me page that you made, where did you learn how to do that? Was it just Googling around? Was it like on Codecademy or something else? Like how did you get, because that's like I guess what I'm saying is like, I think that's a really good project to do. And actually that's what we also do in the 1 month HTML course that we have. That's the first week. It's just like make a portfolio page. It's important to have one. It's like an easy enough project to start with. It feels really good.
Right.
So how did you kind of wander?
And it's about you. So like,
And it's about you. Yeah. So it feels like, yeah, it's about me. It's like kind of feels good. You can show people, there's like a lot, visuals are nice. But how did you wander into that as being like, because also a lot of people are like, what level of project can I bite off? Like, can I make a Uber clone or can I, making probably not, but maybe making an about me page seems reasonable. So, take me there. Like how did you decide on to make an about me page?
I want to say that I literally just want to say like I was reading something, right? I think I like knowing myself, I probably Googled like what to do with HTML and CSS, right? And like I must have come across an article that just said like these are some projects that you can do, right? Just to get started and get your hands dirty. I do remember coming across like dev tips on YouTube, and he had like this really great course or series where he just like built out his own portfolio site from like the ground up. And I think I followed that to about like halfway. But this is like my second iteration of my about me page. My first one, I can't remember like where I ended up figuring out this was right, but I'm pretty sure it was like through a Google search that this was just like one of those projects that you have to do when you're first starting out. And then dev tips was like that next resource that I ended up like landing on. And his channel was really great because I just really liked his personality, and like he didn't make coding boring. He just like made it really fun and light, and he just like shared literally everything under the sun about things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do, the way to set up your files on your computer, right? All these things that like Codecademy had not taught me, since Codecademy is like very browser based, or at least I think they still are. I haven't logged in a while. But yeah, that's kind of like where that about me page came to be. And I don't even think it ended up like anywhere like on a domain or anything. I think it just was like local.
Got
And
it.
I just like took my computer around and showed my family like, this is what I made.
Yeah, it's cool because also cool that you made that leap because I think Code Academy is a really great place to start to kind of like play
For sure.
around a little bit and like you can definitely learn. I sometimes think of it as like drills, like it's almost like a worksheet of like you're just kind of like doing little drills. But also a lot of my students I'll find when they're learning to code, they'll stop at Code Academy because they can't see the next step of getting it
Exactly.
launched into the real world. So so kind of what I'm hearing is like, you know, you were at the Dev Tips, which is the YouTube channel, right? Is what
Yeah.
people can go to check that out. And then you were just kind of Googling around and then you were able to kind of get off of Code Academy into the real world, probably using something like, I'm guessing at the time you were probably using Sublime or something like.
Yeah, Sublime was my first editor.
Yeah. So anyone listening, you know, you can start with Codecademy and then you can put all of that code into Sublime
Exactly.
text. You can Google that application and start actually like, oh, okay, now it's on my computer. Nice.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a quick thing to mention is like, don't be afraid to just Google things. I think that's like a thing now. Like it's like a given, right? But I think you might still be afraid of like Googling. Like you might think like you have to talk to somebody to figure something out. And really like a lot of the answers are on Google. Unfortunately, I didn't have anybody around me that was like a developer, right? Or was a computer science major. So I didn't have anybody to go to be like, hey, like I want to learn more about this thing. How do I get there? So I had to like Google was my best friend. YouTube was my best friend at the time. I think after that, I ended up finding like little communities online. I think I signed up for like freeCodeCamp, for example, and like they had their own community. But I think like when you're starting out, like don't be afraid to just Google. Like you don't have to have anybody just like you don't have to have like a go-to person, I guess, on the side.
Cool. Can you tell us what freeCodeCamp is and how you used it?
Yeah, freeCodeCamp is an online coding. I would consider like a coding boot camp maybe in a way, but it's like pretty much you're teaching yourself. I think they have HTML, CSS. They go into like the back end, so like you can learn Node. And then I think they even have a lesson now around React, which is really cool. But they start you like super fresh with HTML, and then you're pretty much learning and then also coding on the right-hand side of your browser. Very similar to the approach that Codecademy took, but it's all free on freeCodeCamp. They don't like charge you for anything. They ask you to donate, but it's not like I guess like a money-driven company. From what I've seen, it's very like community-driven, and they just want to make sure that coding is accessible to everybody around the world. So all you really need is a browser and an internet connection, and you can learn how to code probably over a few months if you really dedicate like maybe 2 hours a day for 6 months straight. You probably like finish a whole entire front-end development track that they have. And I think the thing with me is that I was trying too many resources, and I think that's where a lot of people get like stuck. And I've learned now looking back is that like I should have just stuck to like one or two and then just like used them to supplement each other instead of like trying and starting new courses every other month. I'm not sure if you hear that from a lot of people, but that was a big thing that I think I did wrong. Not really wrong, but like I just didn't know. I didn't know any better. So I was just like switching from course to course, you know.
I often tell students I think it's good to use a variety of resources because that's also how I learned. But I can see the danger in having too many and then maybe not actually like finishing something.
Exactly.
I know a lot of people do use freeCodeCamp. Is it videos or is it mostly kind of browser based like Codecademy is?
Yeah, it's very similar to Codecademy. From what I know, I haven't looked into it in a bit, but from when I was using it, it was just in your browser. This is an HTML tag, and then you kind of practice it on the right, or this is how you write a function, and then you practice it on the right. But when you join their community, I think you start learning like, okay, I should take this off the browser and just practice, locally and learn what that feels like and what files I should have and should I install Git, right? So like all these different things. I think after you join their community, part of what free code camp is, you start learning like, okay, let's get off the browser. Let's
Yeah.
do my own thing. Yeah.
Do they have support as well? Like if you have questions, you can go there and get questions and answers.
I'm 100% close to 100% sure they have that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like mostly I'm guessing like the community and a forum, this kind of thing.
Right. Exactly.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Good resource to know. So right now you're a product manager at Open Up Resources. What does a product manager do?
Yeah. A product manager. So if you think about a company, let's say Twitter. So if you think about Twitter and you think about like the product that you actually use, right? You download an app or you visit Twitter online. Not only was an engineering team and a marketing team and maybe like a design team involved, right? But there had to be somebody who essentially formed the vision for what Twitter should be. And that could have been a number of people. That could have been the CEO, that could have been maybe the CTO. But underneath, usually those leadership people, there's a product manager. And the product manager takes that vision from the CEO and the CTO, and you basically make it come to life, but not just any idea can come to life. An idea has to go through a lot of different tests, right? So you have to make sure there's a market. So that's what the product manager would do. They would go out, they would talk to people, they would understand if there's a market for a product. For Twitter, I'm sure there was, because people enjoy sharing opinions and seeing what's trending in the world, right? So maybe they talk to people that, and to talk to people to figure out like, would this be something useful? Would this bring you value? So that's the main core job of a product manager, is ensuring that that idea or that like that MVP vision that a person in leadership has, you're taking that and you're essentially running a bunch of tests on it to validate that that product or that idea would actually do well in the market. And that can be done through user interviews. That can be done through A/B testing. That can be done through. There's more, but there's a lot of different things that you can like do to make sure a product will do well when it's in the market. And once you have that idea, that kind of like solidified, you solidify that this idea is actually validated. You would work then with engineering, design, marketing, and you would essentially collaborate to ship a product that is ready for use, and making sure that your value proposition is something that when somebody downloads Twitter, they know how to use it and they know what it's for and they know what value they're going to get out of it. So the product manager sits in between like business, tech, and usually design, and they're just a role that wears many hats. Every day is super different. A lot of meetings, a lot of talking to people and understanding their problems and ideas that they want to change for a product. But the main thing is that you understand that not every idea or not every solution is the right solution. So my job is to understand like, why are we doing something? Who's going to be affected by it on the other end?
Yeah. So let's look at an example like day to day. Maybe you said that a product manager is you're validating the larger vision of a company. You work at a company called Open Up Resources. It's a nonprofit that makes educational curriculum for, I believe, K through 12, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what would be, as a product manager, let's say maybe something that you're working on, maybe this week, if you could share, or just hypothetically something that you're working on, like what's the day-to-day like? Can you take us to that?
Yeah. So let's see. I can probably think back. I mean, so yesterday was probably a good example. So yesterday my day was like mostly filled with meetings. So for example, I'll come in the morning, I'll check my calendar and I'll see like what I have lined up. Usually it's a meeting with the other PMs. So we have a CPO and another product manager, and we usually meet weekly and we talk about like, what are the important things that we want to be working on for this next week. And that's really where we ask questions, we set deadlines. We see where like the backlog is. So what is engineering working on and what progress they're making on it. And usually after that, what I do, I have a ton of emails. So I go through that. And after that, so yesterday, we're working on launching. So our company runs on a print delivery sort of, we're print delivery driven. So a school runs from like August to May usually, or June. And we have to make sure we're meeting deadlines so that teachers can receive their printed books on time, to actually read them and understand what they're going to be teaching, but also to have what they need to get started on the first day. So we're very delivery driven. And yesterday, for example, I was working on, we're going to be releasing one of our curriculum for the second time, and it's going to be going out of beta. Usually we run beta for 2 years. We see like what people are saying, what feedback we're getting, and then on the third year we release it to the public, so everybody can buy it. So right now I'm working on creating, running user interviews. So I'm creating research questions. I'm creating interview questions. What are we hearing from our sales team? What are we hearing from engineering on things that have to change? What are we hearing from? We have a team called academics, so they focus literally just on what content is in this curriculum and does it work for a teacher. So I've been essentially just writing out like this big doc that just will allow me to run an interview with teachers to understand, like, are these different like assumptions that we're making, are they actually valid, or is this something that we just like we're assuming but really isn't a problem for somebody in the classroom who's using our curriculum on a daily basis. And then yesterday as well, like I had a conversation with engineering. I talked to them a lot because since I have like a technical side, like I enjoy talking to them, and sometimes I'll just jump on calls with them randomly, and like they'll show me the code they're working on, or if I'm like, what does this mean? Like they'll open up their development environment and show me like the code they're working on and what each line does and what it means. And so yesterday I talked a little bit with one of my team members on the engineering team, because I think working closely with them is actually super beneficial. Even if you're not like in a product management position, I think it's really important to understand like what is an engineering doing, like who are they, like they're not just code monkeys. They are real people who want to build a great product, and if you just reach out and you collaborate with them, like it becomes this beautiful like work relationship where everybody's collaborating and is really out there to launch a product or launch a feature that somebody on the other end is going to find valuable. So that's kind of my day to day. Yesterday was like a little bit of everything: meetings, emails, user interviewing stuff, and a little bit of a chat with engineering. But yeah, every day is super different. I like if I talk about tomorrow or today, like I'd be like, do you even have the same job?
Oh my God,
You're doing like 3 jobs. Yeah, it's a lot of like switching your hats, right? Sometimes you're like in a leadership hat. Sometimes you're more like an observant hat. Maybe you're shadowing a sales team member to understand what people are saying. It's a lot, but it's really fun. I really enjoy it because at the end of the day, like we're still affecting teachers and students and what they're learning from. So that's really important to me.
Do you feel that learning to code helped you get a job as product manager?
Yes, I think so. I think if I hadn't learned how to code, I would not be where I was today. And that's a big assumption. I could be maybe wrong, but learning to code, like not only was I learning to code and like learning the syntax and what it does, but you start learning about how like a full stack app looks like, right? That you have a front end and you have a back end, and like there's all these different like languages that do their own thing and serve their different purpose. And just understanding how like a browser works or how the internet works, right? Like these are all things that I learned because of code and because I was interested in coding. Yeah, I started off learning just HTML and CSS, but because I started learning that, like it gave me that push to look into other things and like just be curious. So I think if I had never like picked up or opened up Codecademy, which I hope I would have done either way, I would have probably been a behavior therapist right now, like not doing anything with tech and maybe doing everything with tech on the side outside of my job. But it's really great because now I can still be technical. I can talk with engineering and practice that technical side of my skill set. I can talk to marketing and not be technical, right? Like translate what that technical language is something that they can understand. And learning how to code has also introduced me to so many people. I've attended meetups and met people there who would have probably never met, and like learned their story and how they got started. And it really just opened my eyes to the tech industry. I think without it, I would have just been in a totally different industry. So I'm happy that I did pick up Codecademy. I'm happy that article did come across my browser or my phone at that time, and that I was able to find an interest in something that was new. It was exciting, and I didn't really know where it was going to take me, but it took me to where I am today, and that's all I can really be thankful for.
That's amazing. What other resources do you use these days to help you, I guess, stay up to date, whether it's news or educational, just to kind of stay up to date on coding and the tech world in general?
Yeah. I usually listen to two podcasts. And one of them is called Developer Tea,
Oh yeah.
which is really great.
Yeah.
And then I also tune into Syntax FM, which has like Wes Boss, and don't remember the other guy's name, but they're both really great because they talk about just like the current trends of programming and tech in general. So that's where I get like usually my code fix, and then I'm a part of a few different like Slack workspaces of folks that are just either getting into coding or are already like super experienced, and they're just there to like really help others, which I think is really cool. So right now, for example, I'm trying to build out an MVP for a product idea that I have, and so I'll, like, reach out to my Slack workspaces and just be like, hey, like, what approach should I take for this, or is this the correct approach, or is there like a better way to go about this where I won't be like creating a lot of dependencies for my project. So those are like the main things I do today. And then just like, I mean, every once in a while I'll go on to The Verge, which is like super tech oriented, not really coding much, but that still gives me an eye on like what like Google is doing. They just like released Stadia, or they're about to release Stadia. So things like that, which I really like just being in touch with, because technology is just moving so fast, and I'm like, can I keep up? I don't know. AI is coming around, and like you want to learn all these things, but like you only have so much time in a day. So I've learned to just really pick and choose what you want to spend your time on, because your time is really valuable, and you should really only spend time listening or reading or talking to people that you want to make sure that you're doing that because you want to do it. Like, don't like learn a language because Joe said it was the right language to learn. Just be able to like do your research and then kind of go from there. Because time flies. So make sure that you're really working on and listening to things that you want to spend your time on.
Like, what tools and technologies do you use on the job that make you more productive? Like, what are some things that you use? You mentioned Slack. Are there other things, maybe technical or non-technical, that kind of help you just keep going?
For productivity, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I use the Pomodoro like Chrome extension.
Me
So
too.
it's like a 25-minute. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
It's
good.
great. So yeah, I'm able to take breaks and get up from my desk because I work from home. So it's good to get the blood flowing again. So that just helps me to remind me like, hey, you've worked for X amount of time. Cool. Get up for 5 minutes, walk around, get some water, grab some coffee, and then get back into it. And yeah, those are like the ones that come to mind to the forefront right now. I don't like to use like I was in a phase where I wanted to use every tool, but I'm like also cutting back on that because
What's
the
that
more
one?
tools you have.
You mean just like everything, or is there a tool called Every Tool?
Oh no.
Every tool together.
Yeah.
All at once.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to like download every single tool out there. And then I was just like, I need to pick and choose. I need to be more picky about what I download, and actually look into it more. So those are the ones that come to mind right now.
One that I like, I know we're talking about your tools, but just one that I'm curious if you've heard of this one, is OneTab. It's really
Yes, actually, yeah.
It's really simple. So yeah, but it kind of changed my life because like basically if you have 20 tabs open, you can click one tab and it will just condense them into one tab and make a list of all the things that were open. And so it's really easy to go back and like kind of
exactly.
Yeah, if you use it for like 5 minutes, you're like, oh yeah, this is a good idea.
So it's funny you bring that up because I recently switched to Firefox as my default browser because I was like data and privacy, So I ended up finding this like tool called Workona, Workano, or ONA, something like that. Workona. It's really cool. It's very similar to OneTab, and pretty much it creates like projects for for your browser. So let's say you have like the 1 month podcast browser, right? So you can create a project called the 1 month podcast, and you have like all your different, like maybe your notes or your podcast page open, and that just like that's all that holds. And then on top of that, you can maybe have like the 1 month course, right? And the 1 month course browser only holds things related to your course, right? Like maybe what you're planning on doing next. And it's really interesting because it just keeps everything on one single browser, and then you can just kind of like tab switch into all these other projects that contain all your other tabs, depending on like what you want to focus on. So at work, like I have one specifically for every project that I'm gonna have coming up, and all those different projects have like a document for this and a document for that and a sheet for this, and it's only related to that project itself. So what it allows me to do is just focus on one project at a time instead of having like 30 tabs of 30 different things I'm working on. I can just condense, like, I'm only going to focus on X project for today. So I'm only going to have like this project open with like 5 tabs that only relate to this project. So it's really cool. Myself and another coworker started using it recently, and it's really been helping us just focus on one thing at a time.
Amazing.
So we're not just like everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out today.
Definitely check it out. Definitely
I'll put a link to that in the show notes at onemonth.com when we put this up, so everybody can check that out. Awesome. And you did take a 1 month course. You took the JavaScript course.
I did. Yes.
How did that go?
Back. It was so good. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, but it was really, really great. I took it back in 2017. I did the 1 month JavaScript, and like I mentioned earlier, I think I said like there's no way you can learn this in 30 days, right? But that's not really the point. Like I think the point is just like get your feet in what JavaScript is, and in 30 days it really gives you the ability to feel like a lot more confident in what you're able to do. So the really cool thing about 1 month, and what I remember when I took it, was that like each week, it's like a 4-week course. Each week on Sundays you have a project, and that project pretty much builds on what you learned the past few days. And that really helped me because it kept me accountable to what I was learning. So I was like, cool, let's learn about APIs this week. And I didn't just like learn about it and not do anything, right? There was like a project that I had to do, and it was due on a certain date and at a certain time. So it creates this like sense of, cool, somebody's going to be checking this and I really need to do it. And it's really only going to help you at the end of the day if you do the project and you really put the effort that you need to put into it. So it was really great. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's interested in learning JavaScript. Even if you're like super starter, it goes into what you need to know from the beginning, and instructors are great. And I really like the fact that like your work was graded. And if there were questions, like I could just send them in Slack, and there was a community there to help out. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think you guys did a really great job with
That's
that
awesome.
course.
Yeah, and you did too. I mean, you completed the course. You got all the projects in, which is great.
Yeah.
All 4 of them.
It was really cool. Yeah. I really loved it.
What language do you think, if someone's listening right now and they're like, well, where should I start? What language do you think would be the first language to start with if you have no experience learning to code?
If you have no experience, like you've never heard of HTML and CSS, probably, right?
I mean, a lot of people don't know. You know, I just taught on Monday at the business school, and 60 people in the class. We all built our first HTML and CSS About Me page. That's exactly what we did. We did it in just an hour. But there was only 2 of that whole group that had done that before. You know, so
interesting. Yeah.
So I think HTML and CSS. That's generally my advice. But yeah, is that kind of what you would agree with as well? It's kind of where you started.
I would definitely start there, and I would also I also suggest people to research, like literally just like Google how does the internet work, right? Because that gives you like a lot of information that you didn't know usually about how browsers work and how they process code, and how how the internet works in general. Like you send I think it goes to like the HTTP protocol, and like how that works with the server and then your client facing computer, and how it all connects, and how one thing has to like give permissions to the other thing
Right.
to like load the page on your browser. So I think it really helps people connect, like, cool, I'm not just writing HTML and CSS, like there are other things that are happening with my code in the background that I can't see because this was built like I don't know how many years ago, and it just all happens, and that's why things can load onto a page, and this is how HTML loads to the page and how CSS loads to the page. So I definitely suggest to start with understanding how the internet works, how browsers work, and then at the same time, like dabble into HTML and CSS to start for sure.
That's great advice. And you're saying, I want to say you're saying all the right things, because you're just like working into I'm fascinated by how the internet works and sharing that story, because I think that when you can see that, it's like, I just think the entire experience, we spend so much time in front of our computers and our smartphones, and it's just, for a lot of people, it's this black box, and you kind of don't understand how, and then I just think there's like, once you see it, it's like you can't not unsee it after that. It's like, oh, this makes this is this whole thing. I understand how this all works. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, I love that you're saying that, because that's something I geek out about as well. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. This was so great to talk with you. If people are listening and they want to find out more about you, where do they go?
The best place to probably reach me is Twitter. So twitter.com/_justirma. And then I also have a website, justirma.com, where I just have a little bit more about myself, what I'm doing, and I have my email there. So if you're interested in chatting more, definitely reach out.
Love it. Well, thanks so much. This has been wonderful.
Awesome. No, thank you.
All right. That is another episode of Learn to Code here at 1 Month. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. We are on iTunes. You can leave a rating. That would be super, super, super helpful. Thank you in advance for doing that. I love you. I love you. Does it feel nice to hear that in your headphones? I love you. I love you. Well, I do. If you're leaving a rating, I really do appreciate it. It helps. And share the podcast with a friend who is learning to code, if that's helpful to them. In future episodes, we will talk with some more successful people, from a variety of different fields, whether it's data journalism to product managers to engineers, doctors, all different people who are learning to code and using it in their job. And I think that's just such a fascinating and exciting thing to look at. So we're going to look at that. We are also on Spotify and YouTube. You can find this podcast everywhere. So subscribe, share it with your friends. If you are interested in learning to code, you can learn to code with me at onemonth.com. If you don't know where to start and you're completely new, you might want to take the Programming for Non-Programmers course. That's a course that I teach. There's not too much coding in it, just a little bit of coding, but it's really about seeing the different languages. What languages do I choose? What roles are available to become? What's the difference between becoming a front-end developer or a back-end developer? How do you either hire or manage developers? There's a lot of these questions about talking the talk and feeling confident working around technology, all that kind of stuff. If you're excited to just jump right in and make a project, I would recommend the 1 Month HTML course. That's a course where you can build an About Me in the first week. Within the first few hours, you will build and launch an About Me site. Or you can take the JavaScript course that Irma took to learn about APIs, or the Python course. These are the core courses to becoming really on your way to becoming a full stack developer, is learning the front end, which is the HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and then one of the back end languages, which in this case, we recommend Python. So that's a great place to start. That's at onemonth.com. If you have any questions, you can leave a question there, and me or someone on the team will get back to you as soon as possible. So I'd love to see you either here or in another episode. Write me your questions, and I don't know, this is fun. How are you doing? All right, on to another episode. I'll see you in the next one. It's been great having you, and good luck in your journey. Bye.